hello there. We're just we've just finished recording this episode, and James has some important glossary details to let you guys know before we get into it.
Yeah, we want to make sure that this is as inclusive as possible, and it does get very deep into the musical weeds. I think it's valuable for everyone, but I just want to make sure that as much language is covered as possible. If we accidentally mention CCM, that's short for contemporary Christian music. Yeah. So genres like what you'd hear Hillsong playing, if you know Hillsong, they're really famous. Also, terms like cowboy chords are referring to like really simple chords on the guitar. AMEB is like an examination thing. So there's a few terms. If we've missed anything, culture of excellence, I think we talk about a bit. I hope I explained it at the time. But just things like that, message in, we'll try and get to it. But hopefully this is as accessible as possible. Yes. And we want to make sure that everyone can kind of get into the music chat.
And I think we give enough context around them that if you're like, I don't know what that term is, like...
Hopefully we get to it.
I think you should be okay. So don't try not to be intimidated, but we do go into the weeds a little bit. So apologies in advance for that.
Have fun.
Enjoy the episode. Welcome back to another episode of Filthy Hope. If it's your first time here, welcome. We are glad you found us, whether you were just scrolling through your podcast feed and found something random and you clicked on it, or someone recommended it to you. We're glad you're here. On this show, we spend time in the grey spaces where Jesus, life, and culture intersect. I am your still slightly sniffly host, Jonty, and I'm joined again, returning guest, again, James Watson. Welcome to the show.
He's back. You know that bit in Harry Potter?
He's back. That
always drove me up the wall as well. Sorry, we're right in. But you know,
deep in on Order of the Phoenix.
Yeah, right in. And like the whole time, I used to get so annoyed because I'd be like, he's right. And then at the end, Cornelius Fudge, that sick bastard. What a dog. This guy is just like, he's back. And you're like, yes.
That's what the movie's about.
Yes, we know Cornelius. And you're like, ugh. And he does it so well.
Yeah.
Oh, like I'm almost, wait, no, I'm not going to say that. I was about to say I almost hate him more than Umbridge. But
I was going to say, we're going to bring Umbridge into this.
Yeah. But he's not back.
Welcome back to the show.
Yeah, hey, how you going?
This will probably come out after, I'll schedule it so it comes out after the one we just did.
Yeah.
Which was about certainty and doubt and some of those questions as well. And like we said last time and the time before, that sucked in if you don't like James.
Yes.
He's back again. Sorry guys. But
sorry guys, he's back.
If you want to get on the show, if you want a good way of getting on just like hang out with me.
Yeah, just do that.
You'll probably end up on the podcast.
Part of the justification for putting the microphones back on, I was like, well, we're going to talk about this anyway.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I got nothing on.
Yeah, we got the afternoon. I cleared today for whatever we were going to do. So
that's good.
Let's do it. Today, so as we mentioned, very briefly for the, I guess, third or fourth time now for people that, for whatever reason, are only just meeting you. What do you do? Who are you? And again, for people that this is your third time listening to James, skip ahead 30 seconds. Who are you, James, and what do you do?
Yeah, so I'm a musician. I teach music full-time. That's my full-time gig. But I also gig around. So I'm trained on saxophone, I think would be the big one, which for some reason, whenever I say it, feels so unrelated to church. Do you know what I mean? It makes me feel so separate from a church musician as well. But yeah, because I'm mostly playing, piano and guitar at church. But whole family's musical. I'm musical. My partner's musical. I've been very lucky to have music in my life a lot. So I would say good base starting point, music. Other than that, I am a lover of denim and
hell yeah.
and good shoes. I think I love a good movie. That's kind of where I'm at. I'm trying to think of, it's hard to sum yourself up. I'm hoping you get a good idea of what I'm like across.
Yeah.
Across the
And I always like, whenever I ask a guest, like to do that, I always feel like I'm asking literally the most existential question there is, which is like, who are you?
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like...
Is anyone else real? Like, I'm the brain that's perceiving the universe.
Yeah,
Other
I don't
than
know.
that, I don't know.
At the moment, I'm thinking a lot about the Apple Store at the moment. That's, I would say, if you want to get to know me right now,
Yeah.
at the moment, I got a new phone. And like,
you can watch Severance because you got 3 months Apple TV Plus.
That's big. And I can pretend that I might use Apple Music for 3 months, even though I absolutely won't. I certainly will not be doing that. Yeah. Spotify.
You're a movie man, you just said.
I like movies.
Have you seen anything good recently?
Almost brought up Parent Trap again. Let's go. No, I'm trying to kind of get into more interesting movies. I had another crack at Gremlins.
Oh yeah.
It's like I'm so weak. It's actually scary. It's actually
I love it because like it is a kids movie.
Yeah.
Like it's written by Chris Columbus.
Yeah.
Famous for Home Alone and Harry Potter.
Oh yeah. Wait, did he do? Oh, he did.
He directed the first two Harry Potter movies. Yeah.
He and John Williams are like besties.
Yeah. And it's like aesthetically it is exactly like it fits into the perfect like that 80s kids movie vibe. Like Stand By Me.
Yeah.
Like all of those great 80s
Romps.
kids movies vibes. Like even like a bit of like those John Hughes movies like Ferris Bueller and Breakfast Club. Like it's got that vibe.
Romps. Yeah.
But it is genuinely scary in places.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
I describe it as like the perfect gateway horror movie for kids.
100%.
It lulls you in and then you're watching a gremlin get exploded in a microwave.
Yeah. The problem is I watched Amityville Horror too young. The one with Ryan Reynolds, but I didn't know it was Ryan Reynolds at the time. But I watched it too young and like couldn't look at mirrors for a while. Do you know what I mean? Had to like, like everything had to be really well lit all the time for a while. Yeah. So me and horror, I'll figure it out. I think our friendship will force me to probably get into horror eventually because you always, your lists are like 80%, 60% horror, I would say.
Yeah. I think a reason for that is I remember definitely primary school. Well, it probably wasn't yet high school. This was in, and the reason I say it's still in the days of the video store.
Yeah.
It was Christmas Day.
Good stuff.
And my parents rented, because they thought it'd be a good Christmas movie for the family, Gremlins.
Oh.
And all 4 other members of my family, it finished. And I think I was the only one that sat and watched the whole thing. Everyone else was like sort of getting up and getting more ham or, walking around, messing around with a Christmas present or whatever. I just sat there and watched the whole thing and everyone else was like, that was trash. Why did we watch that? And I was like, are you kidding? That was awesome.
That was the best.
And that was the moment where I think my taste got formed. Where I'm like, kids movie, but also like Gremlins are sick. Like,
I think for me, I will watch a terrible movie if it has a great idea. Do you know what I mean?
But even the worst movies, there's stuff to talk about in them. I'm such a believer in like, don't be a snob. Like just watch everything.
About every 11 months or so, I'll rewatch the Twilight franchise.
I've still never watched it.
It's, you know what?
I got 30 pages into the first book and I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
It's so poorly written.
It's certainly not high concept, but it always ropes me in when Edward's like, I have to, I'm out of here or something, like you're too obsessed with me or something. I can't even remember. But Robert Pattinson looks great. And he's like, I'm out of here in my sensible Volvo. And then she loses her mind. Essentially, she just goes into like the deepest depression of all time. And it wins me over because Charlie, the only person with his head screwed on in the whole movie, seems to be kind of like speaking on the behalf of the audience and is like, this is cooked. Like it's been 3 months. You're cooked. This is all cooked. You need to get out of here. Go out, get out of Forks, Washington, I think is where it's set. And I'm like, oh, so the movie is self-aware.
Yeah.
That changes everything. Do you know what I mean? Like as soon as I realized that the movie was aware that Edward and Bella's relationship was cooked, I was like, oh, so there's lore here. Do you know what I mean? Like
there's a particular trope in especially like early like 80s, mid to late 80s slasher movies of like the audience surrogate character.
Oh yeah.
Because there's always that one character that like, and it's almost like it's not always a direct look to camera, but it's like, oh, what something went bump. We should go check it out down that dark
And
corridor.
some guy's like,
And
no.
hell no, I'm out of here. Like, why would you do that?
Yeah.
And they're always the first character that gets killed.
Yeah.
But you've got to have one character in there that just makes sure that the audience knows that the movie knows.
Yeah.
Like, we know this is cooked.
We should split up. No. No, I will not be making myself more vulnerable to attack.
There's a big hulking man that seems to be superhuman and thrives in environments where it's one-on-one and he can pick me up. We should split up.
We should split up, spread out.
Yeah.
Yeah, make sure we can't hear each other. Wait,
No.
there's no reception?
Shut
That
up.
will be fine.
Shut up, Crispin Glover. Like, you don't belong in this movie.
Yeah.
Little Friday the 13th Part 4 reference for you.
Yeah,
for
nice.
our hawk-eared listeners. Because I know everyone that listens to Filthy Hope loves the Friday the 13th franchise.
Well, I completely understood it before you explained it, but thank you for explaining it for the audience who didn't get it like I did.
You've just got to make sure the audience knows that you know.
Yes, just to be clear, I was aware of the reference, and thank you for explaining it for the rest.
Do you have a favourite Friday the 13th?
Thank you for asking. I do, and it's the same one as yours. So after you.
Well, depending what day you ask me, I'm either a Part 4 or a Part 6 man. But
I've
have a
always
soft
said
spot for 3's good.
Yeah, I've been saying that for years as well, and
Although
everyone agrees.
Jason X, Jason 10, Jason Goes to Space is pretty sick as well.
Don't get me started on that one, which is real, probably. Is that one real?
It's a real movie.
Then
Jason
do
Goes
get
to
me started
Space.
on it.
Part 8's pretty fun. Jason Goes to Manhattan, but he only gets to Manhattan in the last 5 minutes, and it really should just be called Jason on a Boat.
I think this is a real kind of this is really impressive that you're able to have all of this knowledge and also be wise about other things, Pastor Jonty Cornford.
I mean, it's literally like if you look at my brain, it's almost a Venn diagram, and 50% of it is just like shitty horror movies.
Yeah, cool.
And the other 50% is everything else.
Yeah, nice.
I'm glad we found the little crossover in the Venn diagram today.
Yeah. Oh man, horror movie. I also made the mistake. Speaking of like Alien, for example, because we watch Alien together for the first time?
No, we watched Terminator.
Oh, that's right. But my first drop into the Alien franchise was I watched Prometheus first.
Oh yeah,
which is because it was like big when I was the right age.
Yeah, it came out when we were in high school.
Yeah. And I think that was either a good move or an error because it meant that when I watched Alien for the first time, I was like, what? Yeah. And I didn't actually know it was a part of the Alien franchise when I first watched it. But now they're doing like other big things. Anyway, horror movies.
Yeah. Anyway, there isn't really a good way to transition from horror movies to music and church. But speaking of horror movies, when did you get into music, James?
Oh wow, that's so relevant. We were kind of gonna dive into. We had spoken about diving into this, and part of the reason I think it feels very obvious is you and I have had remarkably similar journeys with music, both in and out of church. I think. With some kind of cool differences.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I kind of mentioned before, both my parents are musicians. So my dad is an orchestral percussionist, and he was a part of the Opera Australia Orchestra, formerly known as the Australian Opera and Ballet Orchestra. And he literally only retired from being full-time there maybe end of last year. So he'd been in there for ages, all the way growing up. And my mum is a professional flautist or flute player. And so she kind of played with the SSO for a little while, I think casually, and did a lot of musicals. Then my brother, who's older than me, he big on trombone, big on viola, really, really good, kind of got like the music scholarship thing at the school we went to. And then I was born and I kind of got into music as well. I wasn't quite as good at violin. There's this like iconic story of our violin teacher was, I think, one of Mum's friends from the SSO, but in my memory, she's a very dramatic Russian lady called Petra. And I have this core memory of me absolutely butchering Silent Night, Petra sobbing with joy at the beauty of this little child playing Silent Night, and my mum wetting herself laughing at how terrible it sounds in the other room. And so, I tried that, and then, school bands are great. The primary school I went to was really supportive of the school band, which was awesome. But I picked up saxophone, and so my mum had a really sweet deal because she's a flute teacher. Her students who were multi-instrumentalists would teach me in exchange for free lessons with mum. So she would have these 2 flute students, and one would teach me saxophone, because flute and saxophone are frequent doubling instruments, which is like to play 2 woodwind instruments at once. And then not at the same time. Holy dooly, if you can do that, that's amazing.
Just one on either side of the mouth.
Yeah.
Or nose and mouth if you
nose, nose for the flute. Yeah. And then the other one would teach me piano. And so my parents just kind of did that for ages. 2 instrument minimum rule, worked a treat, would recommend. You can quit one, you just have to pick up another kind of thing. And so, wound up with kind of saxophone and piano and just kept going from there. And hated it, for the record, by the way, with a fiery passion, did not want to do it. I'm pretty sure I tried to talk my way out of it a lot, or maybe just accepted it, but I don't know. But my memory of it was that I wasn't crazy about it. And I think that's because I never practiced and stuff like that. So, I did that for ages. And then kind of, it was always this idea. It never was an idea that I would not do music, I think is important. Like there was never a point where I was like, I think I wanted to be an architect for about 3 weeks there. There was like a 3-week period. But I think it was just always like, music. You're gonna do it. You're gonna go to band. And then by the time I got into high school, like my parents are both musicians, so it's not like we weren't running on like tons and tons of private school dollary dues. So they the week, the months before my scholarship audition to get into high school, my dad just quickly taught me a bunch of songs on percussion. And then, so I think I auditioned on 5 instruments just to cover our bases, just like pray and spray to see if we could maybe get one. And I think I got in on like a fraction of a scholarship or something like that. And then the deal was essentially I had to do pretty much all the ensembles.
Yeah.
And what that did was just meant I was just playing all the time.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And so I didn't practice, which I should have done. Definitely. But when you're playing all the time, it's just a part of your life all the time. And being able to kind of have those experiences, I'm really, really grateful for. But all of that was happening in the background to church as well, and where church music came in. But I won't get into that yet. But that's kind of my starting point with music. And since then, I scraped into the con, and first thing I thought when I got there was like, whoa, I probably did not actually pass that audition. And I think it's more likely that USyd probably needed money.
Right.
Yeah. And so I scraped in, and I wasn't doing performance at the time. I was doing education. And then it became apparent that you couldn't, it wasn't discouraged to keep doing your instrument, but it certainly wasn't encouraged to keep playing after your second year. And I really wanted to get good at saxophone. So I worked my butt off for the first year after realizing just how out of my depth I was. And then practice, leaving with all the piano players who just do that regularly, because they're amazing. And then, came back in as a performance student and went straight into second year, which was lucky. And then kind of since then been playing saxophone ever since. But music, again, it's not that there was a moment where I was like, I'm going to do this, It was just that it was always kind of going to be a thing, I think. It felt not inevitable, but just obvious, I think.
Yeah. It's so interesting how similar our stories are. Because I didn't officially like play an instrument until kindy, so it would have been year 5 when I started getting piano lessons. But like my grandfather on my mum's side of the family, an insane level of musical ability and talent. Yeah. So if I do have any musical talent, I attribute a lot of that to the incredible
genetics,
family genetics that I inherited. Like I can't even begin to describe the level of musical genius that certain people on that side of the family have.
Whoa.
So music was just, and also dad. So mum, piano, singer, and viola.
Yeah.
And dad plays guitar.
Yeah.
As well as that extended family, like music was a thing.
Am I right? Did your dad produce a musical? Did I hear that correctly?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. In fact, I talked to him about a year ago about that around Easter.
Yeah.
So, he directed. Initially, it wasn't strictly a musical, but a dramatic, like a play.
Yeah. Wow.
That took place. They put it on at Turramurra Uniting for a week in the lead up to Easter, and it took place in different rooms around the inside and outside the building, which then developed into a musical, which then developed into Wesley's Pitt Street Journey of the Cross, or Journey to the Cross.
The city.
Yeah, through the city.
Whoa.
Was the final evolution of that. But yeah, he did that for started in 98, 99.
Wait, so he wrote it?
Wrote it.
Oh, so the arts have always been
huge. Yeah.
Like not necessarily just music, but just the arts in general.
Yeah, like Dad's sister's an art teacher and an incredible artist.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, art and music and just the arts in general. Before I knew what music was, I knew, interestingly, that I was going to be a writer before music was a thing. I was writing. I still have it somewhere at Mum and Dad's house. I'll have to find it. I have a couple of I would scrounge as many pieces of scrap paper as I could from the classroom and wrote stories and stapled them together into books and wrote because I knew what books were. I was handed Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone when I was 5 and just ate through that. So books were a thing. But in terms of music, yeah, so I don't remember whether or not I chose to play the piano or if it was just we're going to teach him piano and see how it goes. But I started getting lessons in kindergarten, so when I was 5, and went all the way through, did 8 grades of AMEB, and then...
AMEB is the Australian Bureau, was it? Music Education Bureau.
Yeah. So
they just do exams.
Yeah, it's just, did an exam every year or two, basically. Barely practiced for them.
Yeah.
Which... Yeah, at a certain point in high school and even in primary school, I remember going, I don't want to play the piano anymore. It's boring. And being not forced to, but strongly encouraged, don't give it up.
Yeah.
And then, finished 8th grade in year 9 or 10. And so by the time I got to year 11 and 12 in senior school, I moved to a different high school and did performance, classical piano for the HSC. I can still play bits and pieces of those songs. So like you say, those pianists who just practice, that was me.
Yeah, wow.
I just when I wasn't studying, I was playing. I also played the trumpet. So when I was in, the classic when you're in year 2 or early year 3, they take you around and you play all the instruments.
Yeah,
and they decide what you're going to play.
There's a name for it, and we really need to change the name of it, but it's called the blow test.
Yeah, no.
It's not bad, but it feels bad.
Could be better.
Could be, yeah. Could be better.
And I remember picking up a set of drumsticks.
Oh, yeah.
And the look that the teachers and tutors that were there, they looked around and started nodding at each other. And I later learnt that I just played just a basic rock beat, and they were going to suggest that I pick up the drums for band. And my parents said, no, it's too loud. So they went with the trumpet instead, which is much softer. So I played the trumpet between year 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way through to the end of year 8. I quit because I just stopped practicing. And I also got braces.
Oh,
and playing a brass instrument with braces was just literally destroying the inside of my mouth.
No fun.
But similar to you, to a 2-instrument thing. So it was well, if you're going to quit the trumpet, we want you to take the guitar more seriously. So I picked up the guitar. I'd picked up Dad's guitar. Like I said, Dad had been playing guitar my whole life. Middle primary school, maybe. I still remember the first riff or the first song that I learnt was the B-52's Planet Claire, which is remarkably similar to is it Tommy Gunn? Is that what that show's called? Basically that.
The Blues Brothers song.
Yeah, and so in year 9, I was playing guitar in the jazz bands at school.
Wow.
And was at school, at senior school, that when I moved schools on a scholarship. So I was playing piano in all the bands.
Whoa. Piano in big band and stuff.
I was in 3 different big bands.
Whoa.
Yeah. And performing for my music assessments for school. Yeah.
This is so interesting to me because I've never every now and then you'll play a little thing on piano, we'll be warming up for church or something. And I'll be like, what? You know what I mean? I'll be like, oh yeah, that's right. This was your thing for years up until not that long ago.
Yeah, and it's in terms of like the entire, like my entirety of my life, it's only relatively recently that I've stopped. Like, because I was having lessons and practicing like non-stop until the age of 18.
Whoa.
And it's only since then, so I'm turning 27 this year. So it's probably been a little bit longer than that. Like I definitely tried to keep it up into uni, but I wasn't having lessons anymore. I wasn't practicing for anything. I wasn't doing grades. I didn't go on and do my AMUS, is that what it's called?
Yeah.
The thing after 8th grade.
Yeah.
So it just kind of fell away. And so a lot of it's similar to when you, like, I've stopped playing cricket, but I was a cricketer at a fairly competitive level. I was never going to go anywhere with it, but like really enjoyed my cricket. And the mental side of it is still there, but you pick up a cricket bat again and you go, oh, my muscle memory has faded. My technique isn't there anymore. And so often it's the same with piano for me, and I find it really frustrating. And once every 6 months or so, I get this desire to like relearn and get back to where my piano playing was, because I'll sit down and my brain knows what to do, but my hands don't keep up anymore.
Yeah.
But guitar has well and truly become my, almost guitar and production would be my main instruments now. So like I played in a band called Mixtape for the Drive for 4 or 5 years maybe, playing shows, driving around, traveling and playing shows and doing that. And so this might be a good way to start where we transition into church, and where church then overlaps with music for us is I was playing guitar, and guitar was a instrument that was needed.
Oh yeah.
And so I've been playing guitar in church for probably almost 15 years. So
you reckon you were like what, 13ish?
13 or 14. Yeah.
Was this at Taramara where Evolve is now?
At Taramara, yeah.
Do you remember how you got? What were you asked? Did you want to? Did you ask to play? Do you know what I mean? Like,
I remember when I was in like young, I would go along with Dad to rehearsal before church in the morning.
Yeah. Okay.
And while everyone else would set up, I'd just be shredding. I'd be making noise on Dad's guitar, and then they'd make. I was just playing Teen Spirit or Come As You Are or something, whatever Nirvana song I just learnt at that age. And they'd have to tell me to shut up so they could rehearse. So definitely there was a desire early to play at church. But at that point it was like, but I want to play Smells Like Teen Spirit at church. Like it wasn't really, wasn't old enough to understand that like, we don't just like we don't sit around and go like, oh, should we play Chili Peppers or Nirvana this week? Like there's a purpose to it. And so it was probably, it was when I started going to the evening service in high school, like year 7, year 8, then it was like, oh, that'd be fun to play. And so I remember asking, what I didn't, the story that's slightly different to that though is in regard to worship leading, which we'll come back to if at all later. But I was told, well, I wasn't told, I was asked on a Friday at youth group, hey, our worship leader has pulled out this Friday night. Can you do it? And I was like, no. And they're like, no, yes, you can. We think you can.
Oh, yes, you can. Classic. Yeah.
And so I was like, okay.
Yeah.
So I think I was 14 or 15 was the first time I'd been playing guitar but had never sung, let alone led. And so led worship at, I think it was 14 or 15.
Was this in the morning service or the
evening service?
Serving in the evening. How big was the evening service at the time?
Gosh, it'd be 30 or 40 people.
I can't tell if that's more or less intimidating than like 80 to 100 people.
This is very strange. This has always been the case for me. I'm curious to hear if it's similar for you. Put me in front of 1,000 people.
Yeah.
No issues.
Yes.
Put me in front of 10 people and my palms are sweating and I'm palpitating and it's super, super nerve-wracking. Are you the same?
I'm the same because 1,000 people is an amorphous mass. I was doing a gig it was really weird. We were doing the halftime show for this like Did you know basketball was big in Australia?
Huge.
I had no idea. And
Sydney Kings, man.
It's super embarrassing, but it was for the Illawarra Hawks. Not that the Illawarra Hawks is embarrassing. I'm pretty sure they just won. Go Hawks! Hooray sports.
Sure.
And then, but we were doing the halftime show, and you're in this massive stadium and the noise is crazy, but you don't feel you get adrenaline maybe, but like you don't feel nerves, right, so much. I think it was like 5,000 people, something stupid,
sure,
right? Because it's just this big wall of folks, right? When it's 10 people, you see everyone's face. Or when it's closer. And
my grandparents have flown in from Perth and I'm 13 years old, and mum and dad go, oh, you should play the song you're working on for your 6th grade exam. And then my 2 lovely grandparents who just arrived from Perth are sitting there in the living room just watching me play. And I'm like, it's weird. Get me out of here. This sucks. But like, I played guitar in front of who knows how many people over the years, and like no issues. So like the idea of leading and playing guitar in front of 30 people at church was so scary. So scary.
Definitely. 100%. Even now, like there was a Pulse, like with Pulse, which is the kind of young people, what would you call it?
It's the
committee.
It's the arm of Synod, which is the New South Wales ACT body of the Uniting Church that's focused on like first third of life. So there's a kids, high school and young adult focus.
There was like a young adult event, and it was a smaller one, and there was maybe about 10 of us, and James Aaron, who was running, asked me to play, and I was like, yeah, for sure, like no worries, I'll jump on the piano or something, it'll be really relaxed. And when I realized it was kind of pretty small, same thing, I was like, oh, and especially if there's distance, I think it might be worse as well if it's just a little tiny group. And so in the end, we ended up kind of almost getting together more in a circle, and it felt better because I think we were all, instead of just 10 people looking at you, it was actually we were all kind of looking toward each other, which was nicer. But I do 100% feel more nervous in front of 10 people or 30 people, So you were asked to step in as a worship leader for the first time at that time. Had you already fallen in love with this kind of like punk metal style by then?
Yes.
Definitely. Okay, so it was already a thing before you got to church.
Yeah, definitely. It was probably late primary school was when that.
Yeah.
And it was through things like Nirvana and Green Day, very in terms of punk and hardcore, like pretty vanilla, but like entry level stuff. But like one of the first albums, like collections of songs in a project that I just loved was Nirvana. Nevermind. And I learnt the guitar playing those songs. Like that's how I learned to play the guitar, was like, and so it's not even like a matter of taste. It's a matter of like how I understand music.
How you're wired.
Was born through grunge. Which then led down those rabbit holes to other heavier things. Yeah,
which I think if people don't know, the intro, which has changed.
It has changed. You're the first person that's asked.
Oh, okay. I was going to ask I thought you might have addressed it.
No.
Yeah. Because it was longer.
Yes.
And I think there also was like the previously on Filthy Home.
Yes.
But now it's like nice and tight. But for people that don't know, that's you.
That's me. Yeah.
That's you. Including the old one was you as well. And so that style has that. I mean, I'm almost going to answer the question.
Yeah.
That rubs against worship music, I think. It almost flies in the face of worship, of traditional contemporary Christian music.
This gets to the heart of what I want us to talk about today.
Jumping ahead.
This is a great launch pad, because that experience as a 14-year-old suddenly going, oh, I'm not being asked just to play music. I'm being asked to lead a congregation in worship.
Yeah.
What does that mean? Because up until that point, I kind of, like, performance wasn't foreign to me. I knew what performance was. I'd watched Dad's VHS of U2's Rattle and Hum a million times. I've seen, tapes of the Chili Peppers. I know what music is, and I know what a performance is, and I know what it feels like to perform, and I know what it feels like to be an audience to a performance. But leading worship and being part of a congregation singing is a completely different thing. And not only is it completely different, but it is absolutely stylistically completely different to Under Oath's Define the Great Line.
Yeah.
Which starts with a riff in 5/4 and is in drop D and there's not a sung vocal until track 3.
Yeah.
You know, like, and that was the stuff that I had suddenly lit a fire in me for music, was like avant-garde, bizarre, not easy listening,
challenging stuff.
Yeah. And all of a sudden I've got a capo on second fret and I'm like,
cowboy chords, baby.
Are all the songs going to be in G? Cool. I guess that's easy for me to. So what that led to was the first time I actually had to think critically about, like, okay, so we're at church, we're not at a concert. So what are we doing? What is the purpose of us singing and playing music together?
Yeah.
It's clearly not just a performance.
Yeah.
Because if it was a performance, I'd be watching me play guitar and go, that's boring as hell.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, 100%.
What did you have a similar point at any, like, when were you first aware that music at church wasn't just as a performative thing, it was something different?
Yeah. Well, the church I was at, and I think this is true of evangelical churches in particular, and the church I grew up in, I would say, diverts from that in a lot of ways. And one of those ways that I think it doesn't quite fully divert from, but I think isn't exactly the same as, is something called the culture of excellence, which, just to kind of, probably explain quite poorly, is that particularly in large churches, the idea of the culture of excellence is you kind of want to shoot for two things, which is one, God is so grand that God only deserves the best we have to offer.
Yep.
So you get killer bands in and play the most ripping music you can. And then the other factor is non-distraction.
Yes.
And so if you've been in church in the last 20 years and it's less than 100 people, you've heard bad worship music. Yeah, definitely. At least once. Like it can get pretty bad, pretty distracting. Yeah. You kind of, you can, doorbell.
I'm going to go check that.
Yeah.
That's probably a parcel. Sorry, Jonty. I'll let you know what's in the parcel.
Bing bong.
We're back. Sorry, I'll leave the doorbell in so people get a glimpse into my very exciting home life.
Yeah.
I had to go pick up a parcel.
Hell yeah.
Which, speaking of music, there's a couple of records in there for me. So.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Music. Yeah.
So the idea is non-distraction. And if you've heard bad worship music, it can be distracting, an out of tune guitar, even if you have no music training, it's not right. You know if a wrong note is in there, even if you don't know which wrong note it is,
Even worse, 2 guitars, one of which has the capo on the wrong fret.
Oh.
And they just powered through the whole song.
Yeah, you hate to hear it. But also, but that's church, I guess. But for, in bigger churches, that would be a real no-no, it's a distracting and we don't want to distract from worship, that kind of thing, which we can get into because it's something that I've gone back and forth on many, many times throughout my life. Point is that from the moment I joined the worship team at the church I was at, not exactly as defined as the culture of excellence, but from the second I started, it was drilled into me all the time, this isn't about you. Yep. This is not a performance. This is not a concert. You are here to serve the congregation. It's always serving. It's not about you. And you want to put attention away from you and towards God, I guess, towards the congregation, towards the lyrics maybe. And so you kind of, and I think I went through a journey of that and learnt things constantly on the way to get me to the point I'm at now where I'm still learning. But when I first started, I just learned guitar. For me, it was American Pie, which shows, I think. Nice. I think you really hear it in my playing, but that was like the song. Well, actually, to be specific, it's Weird Al Yankovic's version of American Pie, The Saga Begins, which if you haven't heard it, definitely check it out. But that was kind of the way I learned guitar. And same situation. They needed a guitarist at church, I think. And mum and dad had been serving at church for as long as I'd grown up. And I think I really wanted it, like real bad, which I'm certain the minister at the time would have known. Do you know what I mean? We would have known how much I wanted it. And that would have been flagged, I think, he's very young, but we can train him. And so, there was a lot of Yeah, a lot of chat about that throughout the whole journey. And then, there would be stages where like I'd be beating the crap out of my acoustic, like really digging in, and I'd have some more experienced guitarist come up and say, hey, take it easy, it'll sound nicer. And then I'd go, oh, sounding good. Then sounding good is what it's all about. So I'll learn as much about sounding good as I can. And then I learned these flashy voicings or whatever, and jazz voicings. As soon as I learned what a major seventh was, it was all over.
Yeah.
Everything, 1 and 4, chord 1 and 4 always had a major seventh in it. And then it took another 2 years of me playing really heavy jazzy chords to someone say, hey, take some of those out, maybe just a ninth for now, and then stuff like that. So it was a constant journey, but I don't think there was a moment necessarily where I was like, oh, this is different to kind of performing, mostly because I think maybe I don't know if there was as much of a culture of performing as there is maybe on piano. I wonder if because piano is so much about solo performance. For me, it was all about playing in a band with saxophone, right? So I didn't have to quite unlearn what a performance was to get what church was. I think actually probably there's more overlap the other way around for me now, where actually I need to learn how to perform a bit better when I'm doing work and stuff. So
interesting.
Bit of that.
Yeah, I just remember, it's interesting you mentioned the piano thing, because I probably hadn't made that connection that the huge bulk of my musical education was built around learning a hyper-specific instrument to perform solo.
Yeah.
So I learned at a very young age what it was to get up in front of a group of people and perform.
Yeah.
In a way that absolutely was, quote unquote, showing off or making it about me, not about me, but about the piece of music.
That's what performing is,
exactly.
Right? It's pointing to your ability to do something or pointing to a song. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
We bow at the beginning, when you walk out, you literally bow and say, thank you for the praise.
Yes.
And then you sit down and play, which is, I guess, what the performance is about,
Yeah. So, I mean, we've skirted around this already, but it's worth just hitting it on the head. Like, so what is the purpose of music in church then, if it's not performing? If you could, just in brief, because we could spend an hour talking about all the different purposes of music and I'll also give a shout out to Rev John Humphreys, whose pet peeve is referring to music in church as worship.
Wow.
Because that implies that everything else isn't worship.
Yeah.
So I just want to asterisk that there as well.
Yeah.
If I default into the language that's programmed into me that refers to music in church as worship, I apologize. That's just the language that I've been has been programmed into me. But so music at church, why do we do it? Like, what's actually the purpose of it?
Yeah. So I mean, this changes all the time. I think I'll give what's the most widely accepted, idea of it, which is that we use music at church as a tool to sing together for multiple sub-functions. So there's but the main one being praise to God. And so we come together, we are able to sing, which is a very human thing to do. There are not many animals that sing, and we are one of the only ones where we all sing. Do you know what I mean? And so we come together, we sing, we praise, we reflect. Oh my gosh, I'm trying to keep a lid on so many things, but there are some people, and I'm going to crack open this one a little bit, that maybe would use that tool for different reasons, like protest maybe, or lament, cracking that can closed again. But I think generally the main function is for praise. And I think that gets praise and also reflection on our relationship with God and stuff like that. But I think it gets really dicey and rigid, and this is where a lot of people push back, I think. But that's the general point, which is why it's so important not to point to yourself as a musician, right?
Yes, because in contrast to performance, actually no, not in direct contrast necessarily, because I think this can be true in things like live concerts and things like that, but specifically to music in a church setting, it's a communal thing.
Yeah.
It's not something that we get together to watch someone do it. It's something we do together.
Yeah.
And when I, reflecting on that story of when I was 14 or 15 leading worship for the first time, one of the first pieces of advice that I got was that the person that walks in late halfway through at the back is just as much of the quote unquote band, is just as much a part of the worship experience as you are leading.
Yeah.
As is the sound engineer, as is the person at the front with their hands up, as is the person who's there for the first time and is half singing, as is like everyone in the room when we're worshipping through music is as much is equally as there's no hierarchy in the same way that a performance, it literally is, you're there to watch one person and they're the person.
Yeah.
It's something we do together.
And I think if like people might not know this, the amount of thought that goes into that behind the scenes is ridiculous. Like if you ever watch a worship band up there, they're not, if they're, I'm going to say if they're good, almost said that. If they are experienced, they've thought about that so much so that they're no longer thinking about the chords. They're now solely thinking about the experience of the congregation, which is why a lot of people find Hillsong manipulative. You know what I mean? Or these bands.
Because they're good.
Because they're quite good.
They know the songs.
But
they didn't rock up not having listened to the song. Like, they know the songs.
They know the songs really well. You know, they're running off a click track in their ears. And but they find it manipulative because so much thought has gone into the experience of the congregation. And making sure creating the perfect environment for one to solely focus on what they are singing.
Yes.
Hot take. That's pretty good. It's pretty good.
That's leaving aside, there's a whole other issue that we can talk about another time around what then that leaves room for the lyrics to do and how important it is to have good, theologically rigorous and not flaky lyrics, which that's a whole other thing, and I'm totally willing to concede that's a whole other conversation that is valuable to have, particularly around things like Hillsong or Bethel or like
definitely
all the different major worship outlets. But I 100% agree. And when people like non-musicians who don't necessarily get it, it makes me laugh every time whenever someone who isn't a musician gets a little peek behind the curtain and goes, I did not realize how much effort goes into doing this. I thought you just got up and played. And it's no, man, like this this is a skill that it takes time to work on, and especially in a church setting when you're not worried, but you're concerned with the experience that 50 people are going to have that evening. Let alone something like Hillsong where at any one campus, you're concerned with the spiritual and communal experience that thousands of people are going to have. Oh my gosh. You can't just go, we'll rock up and figure it out.
Give it a crack.
Like, of course, you put effort and time into crafting something that is going to induce a response. And be give people the. I almost think of it like you're removing distractions. So that people can just be present and worship.
And I think that's kind of why I sometimes look to the culture of excellence. I'm like,
there are parts of it that are valuable.
Totally. And there are parts of it that are extremely difficult and hard to take apart. But like you're saying, as much thought goes into it probably as the sermon. You know what I mean? In the same way that the sermon is written in a way, or the message or reflection is written in a way to give the congregation something to take into their week, I think the music does a very, very similar thing. And I want to also just quickly name that church hurt is extremely valuable to mention, and that pushing away from a culture that has hurt you, I think, means pushing away from all of it when you're experiencing that kind of thing. So, if I want to just be gentle towards that as well.
Oh, for sure. And songs have such in a positive and negative way. Songs have the ability to stay with you in really visceral ways. So like I still remember what it was like when Zion, the Hillsong United album, came out in 2012. I want to say, like around 2013. I remember the positive impact in the way that those songs just glued to me. But in the same way, if you were in and around that culture and it was really, really harmful, those songs are going to stick in the same way, but mirrored. They're gonna stick around with that, and they will carry that church hurt or that trauma with them.
Yeah.
So I 100% understand that, like, some of those big worship outfits, those big staple worship songs can carry positive and negative baggage with them.
100%.
And that's totally valid in both settings.
So important asterisk.
Yeah.
I get why that quality is so good. So appealing. And I really we're very much tangented, but that being the function, I crave that as a player so much. Getting to a point where it's no longer about you, where it's no longer about the chords, where it's no longer, everyone knows exactly what they need to do. You can fully trust that, and it's typically, you've got a group of 100% professionals. I don't know a single regular sized church that has a full professional band, with less than 80 people in it.
Yeah.
It's extremely nice, which is why I think you often hear of when you talk to a small church, like worship music musician or contemporary Christian music musician, they're very rarely like, oh, I loved that. They're usually like, oh, back at it again, or it wasn't quite, because I think part of it is that we know what we want it to sound like, and it's there's both an absolute joy with playing with non-professionals as it is playing with professionals. I think we're very fortunate in that the church that we attend together, Evolve, we are loaded with talent. We're
non-professionals
very
and professionals.
Where we just, like, everyone is just really, really good at what they do, and so we are able to actually focus on the things that matter, which is everyone singing together. Having that opportunity to reflect, having that opportunity to dive in together. It's no longer about the music, and also then opening up the can of where does this come in, which is, I think we're also able to be creative with it as well. And particularly we're a slightly smaller group. When you've got a band of, let's say, 5 people, that's not a small percentage of the people in the room.
Yeah.
And their sound, how they play, for example, your sound as someone who has most of your experience as a kind of grunge punk metal, I hear it in your playing. You know what I mean? It comes through in the music, and it shapes the color and tone of the congregation. It's why when I first got to Evolve, my initial kind of takeaway was, wow, they're playing like a lot of old classics, which had a more distorted guitar sound in it, as opposed to now in Sydney. We're so in this folk landscape now and gospel landscape. Yeah. We've really departed from that, but Evolve still had that, and I was like, whoa, this is a flashback. And so us as musicians, we are going to paint into the sound a little bit, and this is where I kind of wonder, is that allowed? You know what I mean? How much of ourselves are we? Yeah. Do we put into this? And I wonder, is it as God breathed? It feels illegal. It feels naughty to have our own kind of sound as a group and as individuals, when it really should be about the congregation. I wonder where you sit with that.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. There's an extreme example that I kind of loathe to bring up, because everyone seems to bring it up with me because I think I'm just immediately going to click with it. But like, there's a church went viral in, I think it was Finland, where like there was a news story.
Oh,
about
the metal church.
The metal church.
Yeah.
Like, isn't it cool that there are these people that have decided to play metal music in church? And I don't know, like, the thing that I always go, the lesson that I learned from that isn't that like they thought it would be cool, or a group of musicians were like, we like metal music, so let's like insert that into church. It was actually a cultural thing of like, everyone that goes to this church is immersed in the culture of that style of music.
Yeah.
So the best way
to be non-distracting.
And the best, like the easiest, like the path of least resistance into crafting that environment of worship is through that style of music. And so when I think about the if Evolve does have a musical characteristic to it, it is only defined by the path of least resistance that the musicians and by extension the congregation around those musicians, the music and culture attached to that music that already exists.
Yeah.
It's not like you and I and a bunch of other people have got together and go, oh, you know what we like more than other styles of music? We should try and do it like it's literally because like when you were saying about my playing, I don't think about that. I don't go, oh, you know, I've played God is Great 1,000 times, but what if I did it like this and added a little bit of crunch on the top end, and you know, I'll play on the bridge pickup instead of the neck pickup just to give it a bit more, like, you know, add a bit more of a punk edge,
or a bit more of Jonty. You're not thinking like that.
No. I'm literally just like following my instinct and just going, this is how I think I should be playing this song based on nothing else other than how I think the song will translate to the room. Yeah,
with the tools that you know best.
That's right. Yeah. And so I actually think like celebrating musical difference or specificity maybe is a better word for it, is actually a good thing, because in its best form, all it's doing is reflecting back the character of that congregation.
Yeah.
Which is so important, because I've been to churches and I've been to this isn't a dig at any other church, but like I've been to churches where I've just like not connected to the music, but I've looked around and everyone's super into it. I'm like, great. That means that it's doing what it needs to do.
Yeah.
But I'm a visitor and I'm not getting it.
Yeah.
But you know, that if I were invested in that church, then I would be immersed in the culture of that church and that community, and so therefore that would probably speak to me a little bit more than it does going in cold. It's not about going like we're going to be different. We're going to be a slightly grungy different church. No, it's not that. It's literally just about like keeping your ear to the ground and going, this is what drives culture, and this is the vibe. To use that.
And I think
word.
It's not just like. It's not just what the people are like as individuals and the age. It's also like the size of the congregation will change how you play.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not conducive to singing to have 10 people in the congregation and 10 people in the band. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Getting blasted, I mean, unless that's your vibe, getting blasted by a wall of sound. You know, like if you're like an audiophile, maybe everyone's got really nice headphones on and stuff like that. But like
that'd be kind of sick.
That would be kind of cool, actually. Write that down. Write that down. Clip that. But yeah, I think there's you will adjust as it gets bigger. A congregation of 80 is you're going to play different than in a congregation of 20.
Yes.
Or I think as an extreme example, you know, we saw. Like Passion, I think the group's called. They've got this song with like a really long bridge. I can't even remember, but there was this clip from the Passion like big, not festival, conference. Oh man, big conference. But you know, halfway through, you know, there's a lot of like big movements on stage. Like they're getting down on their knees. Some of them are standing up and praising, big hand movements. Now I will say that does rub me the wrong way. A part of that does feel somewhat like, oh, the Spirit is moving, but only here specifically. Yeah. It feels, it does, I feel a little odd about it. But I also understand if you're in a stadium of like 100,000 or, you know, I don't know how big these blooming things get, big, you need to make it clear and you need to be authentic about what you're doing, in the same way that if you're in a room by yourself with an acoustic guitar, if you're not into it, and you're not authentically feeling what you're doing, I think, for use of a better term, the congregation isn't a phenomenal bullshit sniffer-outerer.
Oh, for sure.
You know what I mean? And so you have to make these things really clear, but also whilst being extremely authentic. And I hope that that's what they were doing at that conference, was just an authentic expression, but also in a way that at that distance, in that crowd, made sense, was authentic, was clear about the vibe that they were giving off. And so it's complicated. It's complicated when it comes to how that is going to, how you play affects the congregation in so many different ways. And all of that is happening behind the scenes when you go to church and you're watching a band.
Yeah. And that's a really interesting difference again between performance and congregational music is when you go see Coldplay aren't going to adjust the songs depending where they're just going to play their show.
Yeah. And then at the beginning they're going to go, how you going? Insert city name.
Yeah. Like there's no, well, I'm not saying that there isn't room for the songs breathing, because absolutely there is. But where that is different to, like, whereas the crowd are there to watch a performance of a show that has already been planned and rehearsed and is just being presented, the musicians on stage at church are actually almost, it's the reverse of that. They are being influenced by not only the size of the room, but the feeling, like what's the sermon about?
Yeah.
Are there any major cultural or emotional things that are happening in that congregation at the moment? Like, and it's all informed by that. Whereas the performative side is the opposite, where it's like, I don't care if I've had the shittest week of my life, I'm going to go watch whoever.
Yeah.
And they're going to play their show and I'm going to get swept up in it.
Yeah.
And where I sometimes bristle when I see big performative worship music is when it kind of does that, where it's not about opening up and removing distraction. It's about sweeping you up in something.
Yeah.
And that's where I hesitate to use the word manipulative, because it, like, as a musician, I kind of go, yeah, that, of course, it's music. Music manipulates you. Like, that's what music does. But, like, where I do think that there often is a place to call out manipulative worship music, it's when doesn't matter what the vibe in the room is, you're coming along with us.
Yeah.
And I, even just saying that, I will put an asterisk, and maybe there is a place for that. Maybe there is a place for that. And maybe it is in a room of 3,000 people. There isn't, you're not actually able to read the room, so to speak. It's the room meets the energy of the band. I'm sure that's probably right. Yeah. But from what we do in the size of congregations that we have experience playing and leading in, it's all about serving the congregation.
Yeah. I mean, even in Hillsong, I know that they actually, so the person singing at the front, they are constantly giving hand signals back to the music director. So they're reading the congregation and the volume and all that things, and whether or not, are we about to repeat a chorus? So those 16 bridges of Oceans, that wasn't like, we're going to just do it. Like they were shooting for 8 and then they suddenly realized, oh, here we go. And so they make a little C shape with their hand, put it behind their back, or make a little B shape, or I think this is the signal for people in the video, making a little bridge shape or something like that for bridge. And they signal back to the music director, who's got a mic going into everyone's ears, you know, and saying, all right, let's go again, and building, or we're going to pull back here or stuff like that. So it is, and this is where the manipulation kind of allegations come in, which is it feels responsive and it feels sweepy uppery. You know what I mean? I think I really get it, but I like its intentionality. I like the fact that it's not about you. It's not about the person up the front. It's about the people who are singing. It's about us coming together and engaging in something together that we can all do, hopefully. Yeah. And I want to also establish on the thing, because I agree, I do bristle when I feel that as well. Important to establish, you and I, we've just, I'm about to say establish again. We've just said that we had extremely similar upbringings and extremely similar experience with the way we play. So I think it's important to note that that's where we're coming from. Yeah. Because I'm very lucky to be at the church I'm at now, has a bunch of worship cultures coming together, and it's tough. It's really tough.
It is.
It's super difficult, and it's like we do not agree. Often, we literally at the moment, the worship leaders, we have a spreadsheet of like a ton of songs where we're rating it yes, no, not sure. There is not one song with 5 yeses. Not one. I don't even think there's one song with 5 no's. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, we just cannot seem to agree. And obviously I feel deeply that I'm right, because yada, yada, yada.
We all do.
We all do, you know. But it comes down to where it bristles and where it gets complicated is you have people coming from cultures where, you know, how I never thought about this, and I wonder if you did, but like when I wake up in the morning, I find it very difficult to go like, the Spirit is telling me that I need to sing this song today at church.
Yeah.
And there's something that I feel complex about, which is that, I think there's a difference between, I think I'm getting wisdom from my experience and reading that we should do this song as a congregation. I've sensed that as a congregation, this is what we need. If there's been an event in the news, something like that might help. I feel complex about, I'm waking up this morning and I'm about to go to church, and I really feel like I need to play the song that especially when we've never done it at church, for example, or it's been many years and I'm not sure that it's really about the congregation anymore. Will the congregation even know it?
Mm.
And so I wonder where you sit with that, this idea of how I feel as a musician or as a worship leader, where does that come in? Because, authenticity, the congregation will sniff out bullshit immediately. Where do you sit with that?
I wish I had a good answer, because it's something I wrestle with all the time. Like all the time. As I'm very confident in my own creative taste or instincts, you could say. Like, I know what they are. I'm quite self-aware about, like, I've written enough songs that I know what my like path of least resistance is. Like, I know what my tendencies are. But I've also been doing it long enough, and this is going to sound, a bit wankery, but I'll just say it anyway because it's true, and then move on and hate myself for saying it. But like, and I know that it works.
Yeah. And you've seen it.
I've seen the thing.
Yeah.
I know it works, so I can trust my instinct.
Yeah.
Which any musician that's been a musician long enough, that's not a self-righteous thing to say. That's just in the same way that if you've been doing your job long enough, you know that you can do it.
Yeah.
You've built up the muscle memory, you've built up the ability that you can do a job.
Yeah. And we know that the result is valuable.
Yes.
We it's not just we're doing it because it's right. We're doing it because that's what we're here to do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think it's important to specify.
The thing then that gets really, really challenging for me is when, and I wonder how much of it is a deficiency in communication, is when not everyone has that same vision. And how valuable is it that I, or anyone, not just me, that one person can communicate that vision to enough people that they're on board? Mm-hmm. Or is it more the case of going, I have a vision, but I'll use the word compromise to meet everyone else and have a more authentic, quote unquote, representation of the group, as opposed to pulling everyone into my own individual vision. Yeah. Regardless of how, quote unquote, good or right, I think that vision might be. Oh. And where that plays out for me is I'll tell this deep, dark secret that isn't a secret at all, because I'll tell anyone that asks me about it, is I generally don't like worship music. Yeah. I generally go to churches, whether it's my own or other churches, and go, like, it really doesn't do it for me. And I struggle with the authenticity thing a lot because of that. Because I turn up to play and go, am I just phoning this in? And if I'm phoning it in, should I be here? Yeah. Because if I'm just doing this because I feel like I have to, and I'm just going to shut off my creative bone, because otherwise it's going to make me want to go cry in a corner because I'm playing cowboy chords again. Like, what is it better for me just to shut up and put up with it, or is it better for me to try and be a bit more? But then that gets into that whole discussion of like, well, it's not about you, and if the group is at a certain level and the musicians cumulatively are at this level, regardless of where you are, you shouldn't expect the group to elevate, or even, God, I sound so wanky saying this. Like, should you expect the group to elevate to a level that you think they should be at, or is that the complete wrong way of thinking about it? Yeah. Because in my brain, I sit there, whether it's in the band or behind the sound desk or in the congregation or wherever it is, and I go, this sucks. Yeah. Or I can hear that frequency ringing and it's doing my nut in, and there's nothing I can do about it. And it's those things that Joe Blow does not care about or doesn't even recognize or understand. Yeah. But those are the things that for me get in the way of me worshiping. Yeah. that it's so difficult
Yeah.
you can't apply that rubric of excellence or success is the better word there
Yeah.
onto everyone.
No.
Because most people at church aren't musicians.
Yeah.
Everyone sings.
Yeah.
Like everyone's a singer. Whether or not they're a quote unquote good or bad singer, everyone will join in and sing and they'll get something out of it. But it's where as a musician do you go, I would not listen to this shit during the week. You wouldn't catch me dead listening to this.
Yeah.
Why am I taking part in it?
Yeah.
And there are great answers to that why. But that's the thing that you wrestle with as a musician with volunteers and other musicians is like, well, and it goes back to that death of ego thing. Like if I had my way, I'd scrap all of this and build something from the bottom back up again.
Yeah.
But like that's not what the point of this is. Are we removing distraction and letting people worship?
Yeah.
I don't know. That was a bit of a ramble.
No. But I think there's a few things. Firstly, I wonder if maybe you should put like a glossary at the beginning of this. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Because, and this brings me to our next point. Inclusion's the name of the game.
Yes.
Right? Not just for the band, but also the congregation.
You don't want anyone to feel like they don't have an in.
Yeah.
You want as many people to be able to find a way into that worship experience as possible.
100%.
Yeah.
And also, I think a really important thing to note, Joe Blow may not care. I also do think that there's times, I always feel a little kind of like thing when someone after church says like, the music was so cool tonight. Do you know what I mean? Or like, which is awesome. Yeah. And sometimes actually that's what we were just trying to have a fun time as a congregation. Yeah. Actually, that was what we were leading towards was just fun, enjoyment, being together, singing together. Cool is fine sometimes, but it's like when you were going for, I really want people to dwell on this idea, think about this, like this song feels appropriate for this moment. And they were like, oh, that piano riff was dope or something. You know, you're like, bugger. Because I feel like I've made it about me, you know? And so I think Joe Blow can have an experience more than just that was cool or that was fine. And it's actually, I feel like I want to serve in a way that makes people think, wow, I'm going to think about that on Wednesday, on Thursday, you know what I mean? And when I'm driving back in on Sunday or whenever church is for you. And so I think, yes, Joe Blow doesn't care. And I also think Joe Blow doesn't know.
Yeah.
And that's why we've been so fortunate to have been given these experience to serve in the same way that I do not know how to write a sermon. So I'm going to trust that Phil or Andrew or whoever your minister is, or, you know, Karina is going to speak in a way that really works, you know, and I'm going to trust that that's going to work. As for inclusion, I'm going to take it open. The lid's off. But inclusion versus quality is literally the most argued thing of all time. And I always say inclusion is the most important thing, and therefore we should take quality seriously. That is where I've sat on it, which is that, yes, I want as many people, regardless of their instrument, ability, whatever, to be involved as humanly possible. And I'm going to be there for them. I want them to change how I play. I want to learn from them. I want them to learn from me. We're going to come together and we're going to worship together as well as worship with the congregation. So I think that's true. Simultaneously, if we sound like crap, guess who's getting alienated? The congregation. They are no longer able to come in because we are too busy having a good time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And we've made it about us and we've made it about our own egos, because music is so sensitive and we have to be so sensitive to people, and what they like is important because this is art.
Yes.
And what people listen to, what they like to play, what they want to sound like are so intrinsic to who they are. And it's so important to be so gentle and encouraging and loving, right? And so that inclusion, super important. I think equally important is if we just consider that, we tend to actually alienate the congregation who equally want to sing. They equally want to be involved because everyone's got an opinion on how they want the music to sound. even if they're a musician or if they're not a professional musician. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Even the fact that someone will come up to you and say music was really cool this week, implies that they didn't think that about other weeks.
Yeah.
So even the people that wouldn't call themselves like particularly critically minded or switched on about what music should or shouldn't be doing, even those people that would describe themselves as being a little bit more distant from having a strong opinion about the music still is forming an opinion, and it still is forming an idea of what music should or shouldn't.
Yeah.
Or not should or shouldn't, but like what music could be, or the best version of what it could be.
Or what they connect to the most.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So it is, we really should put like a big asterisk at the beginning of this podcast, but I feel like we're in so deep. But this is, if anything, I really hope that if you're not in the band, or if you're not getting a takeaway, one, be involved and like tell your congregation what you connect to. I think that's really cool. And two, I also hope that if maybe your takeaway from this is that there's a lot going on up the front, or if there's not, there should be, because I think they should care about what you're singing and stuff, and how we sing together is so valuable. I think it's so special. I wept at my wedding, not because the song was super deep. I think it might have been Be Thou My Vision that got me in the end, but it was just the sound of everyone there singing together.
Yeah.
That's what got me, because I was like, wow, we can just, it's so rare to have an activity where 400 people can get around one thing.
Yeah.
Non-Christians and Christians alike singing. It doesn't have to have this insanely deep meaning, because we're coming together and we're all engaged on the same thing, right? Which is these words. And maybe you'll think about that taking home, and suddenly it'll pop into your head, oh, this is what Be That My Vision was. Oh, whatever. And that's so valuable, I think. Anyway.
Yeah. We could keep going for ages and ages and ages. We might do a follow-up actually, and maybe I'll put the call out now. If you have questions or stories or things you want clarification on around music in church, send us your email or join the Facebook group or text me or James. Yeah.
Or if you're a worship musician, come and you disagree, please, fire in, or you agree, or you have, an interesting take. Yeah. Send that in as well.
Absolutely. Cause it's so ripe for, like we could, I'm going to peer this thing open slightly and shut it again, cause we're wrapping up. But like the fact that, not just financially, but in terms of the social cachet that we give preachers and the sermons, you don't go home singing the sermon in your head. Yeah. Like you go home humming whatever that last chorus was. The work and the effort and the choices and the diligent time spent crafting worship music, I think like you said earlier, is just as much work as the sermon, and yet for some reason it's so undervalued and not talked about nearly as much. So I'd love to crack this open again and go into some specifics if people want. Send your questions in, send your disagreements in, send your talking points in. I'm doing a podcast with Jeff Bullock soon as well. Cool. Which we'll probably get into a bunch of this stuff as well. Thanks again for being here. We've had a blast as always. We've already talked about TV and movies at the beginning of this.
Ask me again. So Ask me again.
Yeah. You seen anything?
Parent Trap. Watch it. It's so good. Dennis Quaid looks so good, and just the acting is way too good. Lindsay Lohan's British accent. Yeah. Dick Van Dyke was way older and way worse. You know what I mean? And like the relationship between the butler and you know what I mean? It's so good. Yeah. So good. Rewatch Parent Trap. But also the like girlfriend character that Dennis Quaid's with. She wasn't that bad at first. She seemed nice. I know she was horrible in the end, but at first I'm always like,
yeah, but they definitely bait her into.
Oh yeah, 100%. Oh yeah, and is it Melissa? No, Melissa Fumero is from Brooklyn Nine-Nine. But the actress who plays the nanny, the American nanny, it's so good. Yeah. She's amazing. Everyone rewatch Parent Trap. The cinematography is crazy. Anyway,
we actually did rewatch Parent Trap like less than 6 months ago.
Sick.
Because we do a my partner and I do a when it's movie night we alternate who picks.
Yeah, nice.
And you just have to like it's
you just got to do
it. You pick. Like that's what we watch. So I think it was probably her choice. But
nice.
last time we watched Parent Trap, less than 6 months. It was rips. It's good.
It's really good.
And it's a remake as well.
Yeah, right. I actually, to be full disclosure, I have not watched the original.
Neither. And of course my film nerd autism brain went like, I have to see the remake now. I have to see the original. I still haven't done it. And it's been bugging me. I need to do it.
When they've nailed it already, why downgrade?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's fair. Yeah.
Sorry if anyone loves the originals and comes up.
It could be great.
Could be good.
It could be good.
Could be
but
good.
Like, yeah. I will shout out, I've been reading, do you know who Brandon Sanderson is?
The name rings a bell, actually.
Yeah, big fantasy author.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So I read big chunks, like the majority of his Stormlight Archive series earlier this year. I've gotten back into reading his stuff with, this will mean nothing to most people listening, but Era 2 of the Mistborn trilogy.
Okay.
The Mistborn series. So he wrote a trilogy called the Mistborn trilogy, and then this second era is a series of 4 books that take place 300 years later, in which the events of the first trilogy are now like informing religion and history.
I love that.
Yeah, so it's pretty cool. I've just started the 4th book of that series.
I'm a sucker for a good idea.
Yeah,
that sounds awesome.
And going forward, he said that there's going to be 4 eras. So Era 1 is like epic fantasy.
Yeah.
Era 2, which is one that I'm on now, is like post-industrial revolution. So there's like firearms and cars and things like that.
Whoa.
Era 3, which is his next series that he's working on apparently, is like 90s, like computer hacking Matrix vibe.
Yeah.
And then Era 4 will be like space travel.
Whoa.
And it all takes place in the same universe, but like hundreds or thousands of years after each other.
It's kind of
pretty cool.
Giving Avatar: The Last Airbender versus Legend of Korra.
Yeah,
that.
Similar.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah. So if you're into fantasy, start with Brandon Sanderson, Mistborn. Cool little bordering on young adult, so pretty easy to read. Good fun fantasy stuff.
So cool.
Yeah. If you want to support us, as always, you can people keep reminding me you should ask for people to pray for you because prayer is not insignificant. So if you want to support us, pray for us. We always appreciate that. But also money's good. So if you want to buy a t-shirt, jump on the website.
Yeah, get a t-shirt. They're great. Yeah. They're super comfortable.
Yeah.
I've got one.
Yeah. You're on almost the face
I'm the face of the merch. Yeah, that big goofy guy with the fella who needs a haircut on the photo. If you go to Instagram, that guy.
You have had a haircut since then.
I do. Yes. I've been shorn.
Yes,
it's good.
And leave us a review on all of the things because they help too. Thanks for listening. We'll see you guys next week.
See ya.
This is a prayer for the people who want to give up, who have been hurt beyond repair and cannot bear to see your face in anything. Find peace in letting go of the guilt that is in yours. Find hope and understanding. Life is not a game you have to win. Forgiveness overwhelming. Salvation not deserved.